building a quick flashcard study game for a law school group. We're going to use a program called Laravel, which is a PHP-based framework. And we are going to base this off of cram.com's flashcard system to provide inputted data. So ultimately, when the study group gets together, we'll be able to add players dynamically. We'll be able to download a whole bunch of cards from cram.com and let the game randomly select cards to create a Jeopardy-like system. Okay, so let's see here. I emailed myself just now a diagram that I just drew out. I should have downloaded it before I started the video, but I didn't. So while we're doing that, I tend to hum to myself. I apologize. So we're going to also open up the terminal. And I store all of my program directories in a folder called Git because ultimately I use Git to transfer things between my computer and my server. So I'm going to do Laravel, new. We're going to call this study game. You know, let's call it the question game. So Laravel installer is currently going to create like an empty template repository. So while that's installing, we'll take a look over here at game diagram. Let's download that. I'm working on a computer that is now over 10 years old, so it does move a little slowly at times. But in spite of that, we're still going to finish this in a reasonable time period. Come on. Okay. There we go. Oh, it just took a while to get everything going. Okay, do we have a way to rotate counterclockwise? We do. Alright, so we're going to start here. When the program loads, ultimately we're going to have a name. When you add a name, it's going to reload the page. We'll probably display names up here to show what names are already in there. And when you're ready, you click Start, and you can add your cards. Then you click Next, and the program will divide them into a grid of 4x4, 5x4, maybe we'll make that dynamic, of tiles with dollar amounts on them. When you select a tile, it will ask who is answering. It will then present the question, and when the group is ready, we'll click See Answer, and we will determine whether or not the person has answered correctly or not. If answered correctly, we add the money to the player's bank. In either case, we're going to flip the card and move back. And when all the cards are flipped, we maybe will generate a new tile board. So that is the plan. We're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, and each of these lines is a transition that we need to code. Okay, so let's take a look here at this. This is finished installing the program, so let's go here to, let's see here, question game. We're going to get init, because I do want to start a repository here, git add all. There we go. Git commit message empty Laravel program project. Okay. So we're going to do PHP artisan. Artisan is the name of the Laravel interface manager. Serve, and this is going to give us a web page that we can view. So this is the empty Laravel application, and we're going to be changing this throughout the video. So by default, you get a blank page that says Laravel, and you can click these links and it'll take you to other information. So let's see what we can do now about changing some of that. Okay, so first things first, we're going to use Artisan to create some migrations, and we're going to use it to create some models. A migration relates to a database, so I'm going to log into the database here and create database question game, create user question game identified by. This is not going to be a permanent database. We're going to move this to a server, so it doesn't matter what this is. We're going to call this local 1234. Okay, grant all privileges on question game.star to question game. Okay, so we've created a database there. Now in Laravel, all of the environment variables are stored in a .env file. We want to keep the .env file out of our Git repository, so we're going to go to git ignore. And we're going to, oh, it's already in there. So the .env file is not there. So we're going to do vi. So first off, let's see if they have a template that we can copy. That's right, ls-alh. Okay. Git. Okay, so we've got a .env file already. vi.env. That's the question game. At current, it is on localhost. We'll change that later. Database is localhost. Just set the name as question game. Question game, and I think that I called this local 1234. So we're going to do PHP artisan migrate to test that connection. Everything was successful, so that's good. So now we're going to PHP artisan make model. We're going to create a migration with this player. Okay. We're going to PHP artisan make model flashcard. I gave some consideration before making this video whether or not to keep it database related or just keep things in session memory. My instinct for the first version of the game was to keep it in session memory because I didn't want these things to persist, and I don't want the database to become bloated as we add players every time we load a new game. But these are development adjustments that I'll make going down the line. I thought that for the purpose of the video, it's helpful to see how migrations and models work to take advantage of Laravel's object system. So we need, let's see here, we got flashcards, we got players, make model. We're not going to store the game board in the we're not going to store the game board inside the database. We're just going to keep that in session memory. So we're not going to do a migration for that. Okay. So let us also PHP artisan make controller. Now, I could have added a controller at the same time I made the players and the flashcard, but I'm not entirely sure that I want to do a resource-based controller system, just because I want to keep things kind of simple here. So we're going to make a game controller. Okay, so let's open up NetBeans and take a look at what we've got here. We're also going to open up PHP Artisan Tinker, which is a command line based processor. So see, it gives us a little shell there so we can play with some of our objects. Let's create a new player real quick. Player is equal to new app player. Alright, so when we create our player in when we create our player object, our instinct is going to be to create a new project. Sorry. Our instinct is going to be to create attributes in the object that match what we need, and I'm going to show you why we're not. PHP application with existing sources. And we're going to select the folder. This is the question game. We're going to use PHP version 7. Finish that up. Okay. So this is the player, and it extends the Laravel model. Now you see this field here, the attributes. These attributes and the corresponding migration table match up. If we create attributes in the player object, it will override and overwrite these values, and when we go to save the player to the database will show a lot of null values where we have actual values, because when you create it at the top level, it again is invisible to the object down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of the NetBeans IDE, and we're going to use Java doc notation to add attributes that are invisible, and we're going to let the model setter and getter control where the values are stored to make the most out of the Laravel system. Alright, so let's take a look here. So all of our new model items are going to be down in here. Okay. So we're opening up the player. I'm also going to open up the corresponding migration, which is going to be down here in database. Now normally I would also create tests, but this is going to be a short video for a game that I actually need to have ready for tonight's study group. So I'll create tests a little bit later. I do believe very strongly in test-driven development, however. Downside to that, even though it makes more secure code, it does take a little bit longer. Alright, so normally we would put our attributes here. So we do player name, balance. So this would be like the bank account balance. We can also add things like their statistics of how many they got right, but we're keeping this simple. So instead of putting them here, we're going to do property, string, name, and we'll do property, string, balance. I want to store my balance as a string just because floats and doubles are sometimes imprecise. We have the BC math model, which will allow us to add strings together quite nicely. Also, PHP natively converts strings to numbers when necessary. So if we store the balance as a string, PHP can handle that quite nicely. Okay, so down here we're going to create our database table. First of all, so let's connect to the database and see what exists currently. So we want to do connect to localhost, connect. We're going to choose the question game. Alright, so right now we don't have a player's table. This is going to create it. So we have to create table, string, name, and then we're going to table, string, balance. Okay. Before this runs, however, we're going to have a problem with MySQL 5.7 because the default string length is too long. So we're going to jump to the app service provider, which controls the boot process. Okay, providers. We're going to call on the schema. Searching for suggestions. I want to get the namespace right. All right. So while that's loading, it's still searching the. It's still scanning the project to make a directory. Down here in register, though, we're going to do schema or scheme default string length. And we're going to set that to 191 characters, and this will make Laravel compatible with MySQL. Got me yet? Okay, let's search for it. I'll do it manually. We got the scheme validator. I'm trying to push this computer just a little bit too fast at the moment. Honestly, the best thing to do would probably just be to wait for that to finish. Alright, so we're going to come back after that finishes. Let's set up the flashcard. Okay, so flashcard, we're going to have property string question, property string answer. I also want to store the number of times that these flashcards are asked and answered so that we can start increasing the values. So we're going to put integer used, property integer attempted, property integer answered. So it's going to be number of times the card is answered correctly. And this is going to be number of times the card has been displayed to a student. This is number of times the card has been used in a game. So the card can be added to a game board and never turned over. So the use can go up without it being attempted. Once you turn it over, it gets attempted, and once you answer it correctly, it gets answered. So ideally, down the line, I can start looking at which flashcards have the lowest correct answer rate and give those a higher value. Okay. You know, we're also going to, we'll add a daily double feature on another day. Alright, so in the meantime, let's open up the corresponding table for the flashcards. Okay. So, table. Now we used string before. We're going to use text or blob this time because I expect that the question and answer will be very long. I'm also going to make these unique. so that if somebody tries adding the same flashcard twice, that we end up using the existing one. Scratch that. I just realized there's complications with that, and I need to have this done today. So we'll add that later. Table, integer, used, table, integer, attempted, table, integer, answered. Okay, so that table's done. Let's see if we can finish use scheme. Scheme validator. Wonder if Laravel upgraded their system. You know what? When all else fails, let's turn to Google. Schema default string length Laravel. Because we have to get that namespace perfectly correct. So this is what it fixes, the problem here. Okay. There we go. Oh, it's schema. Schema. That's why. Schema. There we go. Schema. Alright. Let's make sure that. Pretty sure that's correct. We'll find out here in a second. So we're going to exit this. We're going to do a migration again. Migrate. Bad method call. Oh, I misspelled string on one of the blueprints. Right here, string. Okay, let's migrate this again. Boom. Okay, so now when we go back and we refresh this list of tables, we now have players and flashcards. Okay. So let's see here. Git commit. Created player. Model and migration. Created flashcard. Model and migration. Okay, so let's go to the game controller. So, game controller is going to handle some of the actual physical activities. Let's also create a display controller. PHP artisan make controller display controller. Okay, so on the display controller, we're going to have certain things like function. We want to be able to show registration card. Public function show data upload card. Public function show game board. Public function show player selector. Public function show question. Public function show answer. Okay, so this is going to handle all of, did I close that preview? Here it is. So we've got show registration, show data upload, show the game card, show player selector, show question, and show answer. So that's going to handle putting these pages up to the screen. We also need to handle various inputs. Some of these inputs can be handled simply by a link to a new page. So for example, clicking start isn't going to actually require any interaction with the system, but adding a name is going to require sending this data. So we'll need to create, let's see if we can split the screen here. We're going to put that on that side, and we're going to put this on this side. And let's minimize these, give ourselves a little bit more space. Okay, so we're going to also, in addition to showing the registration card, we're going to need public function. We're going to need to add player name. And that's going to come with a request object. Okay, in addition to that, we're going to need to add flashcards. Okay, and we're going to go request. So the request is the information that comes with the button click when the page loads. And technically, these also have requests, but we won't need to access the data. This here, we're going to handle with a button click. This here, we can also handle with a button click. We don't necessarily need a handler for that. This here will also handle with a button click. Alright, so we're going to pass in the URL the card. Here we're going to pass the player in the card. Alright, so by the time we're showing the question, use flashcard, use player, we're going to pass show player selector. So we're going to do see a flashcard. We'll call that card. Okay, now we're going to go to the question. We're going to have both the card at this point and the player. And then when we go to the answer, we'll also have the card and the player. Okay. So on the game controller, we're actually going to need to cards. We're going to need a map of cards, card map, and we're going to need private okay, and we're also going to then create PHP artisan active card. Oops, let's make model active card. Okay, so our active card is going to point to a flashcard and to the associated game board. Private game board, private flashcard. The game board is going to have private card map. Use active card. And this is an array or collection of active cards. Okay. Alright, that's good, like that. Okay. active card should also probably have a position. Okay, public function create player. We're going to need a name. Public function add card question text answer text public function initialize new game. Use game controller, use player, use flashcard, use active card. Okay. I'm going to let the actual game board itself control the active cards. Okay. Okay, game boards are also going to need a list of players. Okay, so we're going to first make a player, new player. No, we're actually going to assume that if the player, for the time being, because this is only going to be used by me and my friends, we're going to assume that a player is going to have the same, and anyone with the same name is going to be the same person from game to game. So we're going to get the first or create name. Okay, and that's going to create a problem because we don't have a default balance. So I need to go to the player migration. We're going to add some defaults here. Default. Okay. We're also going to make it so that we can fill those values with an array. Okay. So now we've actually created either a new database entry, or we've either created a new database entry or we have fetched an existing one. So if we fetch an existing one, we want to make sure that we change the balance back to 0. So let's take advantage here of the IDE. And because we added those properties, it should give me a list of attributes. Okay, player. Did I misspell it? Nope. does look like I had it misformatted. Let's get rid of the semicolons here. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to save this. And we're also going to add it to the game. Actually, I'm going to index this by the player ID. That way, if the same player gets added more than once, it only appears in the array once. I'm also going to initialize this to an empty array. Same here. Alright, so active card is equal to new active card, and active card ID is going to equal to card ID. Active card looks like I made some mistakes. So, oh, I never did put in the stuff here, and I made those private. Okay. Overlook function, add card, flashcard, use flash. This flashcard. And this ID is equal to card ID. Let's just change that to a card. Yep, let's refactor. Alright, so we got a new active card. Active card. Let's see if we're going to set card. Did I say add card? I did. Let's change that. working with a good IDE is helpful because it allows you to make changes as you go to make the code more readable. So by changing that there, it should have changed it here. See, set card. Active card, set game board. Okay. That's this. And again, for now, on the card map, active card ID will hold active card. All right, so the same card is never entered into the card map more than once. Okay. So we're going to add cards. The card itself determines whether or not it's flipped. We're going to add players. Players can only be added once. Okay. And we'll worry about getting functions like public function get display cards. Get cards. It's going to return a collection cards sorted for proper display. And actually, let's put a count in here. It takes parameter integer count number of cards needed for a board. Get a list of cards to display on the page. Alright, so we're going to do a couple of things here. First, this create display allocation. Count this clear empty board. Create display allocation. Return this get display allocation. Okay. Method. Okay. Alright, so first things first, if this all cards are flipped, if it's true, and this display allocation equals to null. So let's make an empty array to keep things simple. Let's create this display allocation. And let's change this from card map to card list, refactor, rename, card list, factoring. Okay. If count this display allocation is equal to 0. So if we currently need a display allocation, then we will create a new one. 'allocation to this select new cards. This sort cards by difficulty. This pick random daily double. We're going to comment this out. I'm going to add that on another day. This display location. Cards. Okay, so we're going to first select a whole bunch of random new cards from the card list. We're going to sort the cards by difficulty, and then we are going to assign those to the new display. And then down here, all we have to do is return this display allocation. So the idea here, as we code, is to create things that are readable in natural language to make errors less likely. So when I'm going to get, I'm imagining that when I'm picking this page, I'm going to say, okay, well, I want to have 6 by 5. So I'm going to need 30 cards. So I'll ask the game board, can I have 30 cards? So first, it's going to clear the empty board, but it's only going to do that if all of the cards are already flipped, because otherwise it will it'll generate a new board every single time it gets cards. So we're going to wait for all the cards to be flipped, and then we're going to create a new board simply by emptying out the existing board. Okay, we're then going to create a display allocation, but again, we're only going to create it if the board currently is empty. We don't want to overwrite an existing and active board. So if the board is empty, then we're going to select new cards in the total amount provided by the user. We're going to sort the cards by the difficulty. Remember, we're tracking that now. And we're going to store that in a place where we can fetch it later. And then we're going to fetch that value here. So the only thing we haven't created so far is, well, we haven't created this method, create. We haven't created this method. And we haven't created this method. Okay, so Laravel has a testing utility. Actually, it's not part of Laravel, but Laravel incorporates it as part of its design. It was actually created and can be used by any sorry about that. Just got a text from my study group. So this faker can actually be used in any PHP project. It's extremely useful in when paired with Composer. Laravel does use Composer, and Laravel's decided that this is so useful that it's actually built it into the system. But this is again used mostly for testing purposes. But one of the nice things about the faker is faker. Let's go to this. Oh, sorry, factory. We want the faker factory. We want to create a new one. It comes with a lot of nice random selection tools. So we're going to, oops, we don't want to sort, we want to select new. We're going to do faker, select, oops, let's do random elements. So we can put in an array and a count. So here, we're going to put in the card list. Okay, and the count is going to be user specified. And these are going to be our random cards. Okay, we're just going to pass those back. See how easy that was? Whether or not all the cards are flipped, remember we have arrays of many sizes, so what we're going to do is we're going to cycle through the active cards, and we're going to add this public function is flipped, or is flipped. Yeah, is flipped. Okay, so we're going to return this value. We're also going to need a way to flip the card. Public function flip. This is flipped. You know, I don't like flip because flip can be done multiple times. Let's turn face down. So now this is going to be true. Public function turn face up. So that's just a nomenclature thing, again, for understandable, because whether or not something's flipped really depends upon context. So if everything's face down and you flip it, it's face up. If everything's face down and you flip it, it's face down. So let's change this here to is, rename is face down. Okay, so that's a bit more understandable there. And let's see here. Let's refactor this. I can't name it is face down because I'm using it as a variable name. So let's change that variable name again. And oftentimes when you're using the same variable name as the matching function name, you just put an underscore in front of the variable name because it's private anyway. And now let's refactor this is face down. Refactoring. And we can also do public function is face up. And what this is going to be is return this is face down is equal to false. So if it's not face down, it's face up. Alright, so let's go back to our game board. So we're going to filter the array. Filtered list array filter. Okay, we're going to pass in the array and a callback. So the array is this display allocation. Callback. Actually, you know what? Let's do this a different way. Let's do count face up. It's equal to array. We're going to do a walk. So this is going to allow us to pass through an array of data. In this case, it's the display. And we're going to use a function here to count. So the way that a walk function works, we're going to have a pass-through value. They sometimes call it a carry. We're going to have the current item. And then we can also get access to the current index if we want it, but I don't want that. So we have here an active card. Okay, let's drop this down to the next line for readability. Okay, oh, and the next item is the initial value for pass-through. Okay, so if current item is face up, then pass-through is going to equal to the previous value plus 1. Now there's lots of ways we can write this. I'm making this video for people who maybe don't understand how to program. That's one way. We can also do this. All of those add 1 to the value of pass-through. This is probably the easiest to understand. And then we're going to return pass-through. Alright, so this function is going to be run on every single item in the display allocation. It's going to say, is the value face up? If it is, it's going to take the number that it's receiving and add 1 to it and then pass it back. And then it's going to, when it passes that back, it's going to go to the next card, and that card's going to receive this value, and that card's going to ask the same question, am I face up? It's going to add 1 to this value, or it's not going to add 1, depending upon its status. Alright, so we've got here a complaint by the IDE that says I have made some sort of mistake. Integer 0 after comma. Expected identifier. Variable, array, callable, namespace defined. Possible syntax error. Okay, let's double check the, maybe I've made a mistake on the callback. Oh, let's see here. It wants a variable here, basically. Oh, but I know what the problem is. I put the default value here, not in the function. That's the problem. And let's double check that. php.net. It's always nice to have references like this. Go back, double check your work. Array walk. Alright, so I'm looking for a function call. So it's the array is first. There's the array. Then the callback. It says mixed user data. Oh, I want array reduce. Array reduce. Initial value. That's, see, I'm glad we had this little moment. So array walk does in fact go over every single item, but it doesn't have a pass-through, and it doesn't reduce it to a single value. So array reduce is going to walk through the array, passing a value from one item to the next until at the end when you have just one value left. And in this case, the way that we've written that function, that value is going to be a count of all of the cards that are face up. So we're going to return count face up equal to 0. Alright, so this is a Boolean. If all of the cards that are face up total 0, then all the cards are flipped. Correct? So that's what we're doing. We're counting all the cards that are face up here. If it's an empty array, there's 0 cards face up. If there's 100 cards and none of them are face up, this is also 0. And if that value is equal to 0, we're returning true. If that value is not equal to 0, we're returning false, which answers the question, are all cards flipped? Alright, and sorting by difficulty, we will worry about that later. Add later, after we have actually programmed difficulty into it. So we're going to need to create a reference to the array that's passed in. And we're going to make a card list there. And we can specify this as an array. Okay, so we're going to modify that a little bit later. Alright, so we've got a whole bunch of stuff going on there. Let's take a look at our game diagram here. So, we have a way to add the player on the game board. Let's go back to the game controller. Alright, so we can initialize a new game, which just creates a new game board. We can create a player by passing in a name. We can add a card by passing in question text and answer text. So each one of these lines is going to be a pair of questions and answers. Let's see here. And then we're going to need a way to get the game board. Public function get game board. Return this game. Okay. So we're getting to the point here where we can start working on the first page. Let's jump here to web.php. So web.php defines how Laravel handles all of our various URL endpoints. So right now we're displaying the welcome page. When we load the game, I want to display the player, add player view, route, get. Okay. I need to create something here. we're going to return view add cards. Add cards. Okay, so let's open up our display controller here. So Laravel allows me to, let's go back to web. So we're going to take this here, and we're going to put this into add, or show registration card. We're going to return that view. And then when somebody goes to the root directory, we want to have the display controller run show registration card. Right? This one here, we're going to put to the show data upload card. Format that a little bit better. Here we're going to be display controller show. What was that one called? Show data upload card. Okay. Cards. Add cards. Add player. Route. Get. Let's function return redirect to route add player. Okay, we're going to name this route add player. All right, so we're using some similar names here between the routes and the views just to keep things simple. So when I'm looking for the route that points to the add card view, we're going to use the name add card. Okay. And to make things simple, if I receive any posted data, route post to the add player page, we're going to run the add player name process. And let's do that here too. So if I get anything posted to the add card, we're going to add flashcards. Okay, we're going to change this to post. Post and get are two ways that websites can communicate with each other. Alright, so that handles this button. That handles this button. The next is actually going to be the post portion here. Okay, and then we're going to have a route get game. Okay, name this as show game board. Go to the display controller, show game board. Okay, now the game board itself doesn't ever actually receive data, but we do go to the select player thing. So we're going to have a cards card select player. Name select card. So when we select the card, we're going to then transition to select player. So I'm going to call the view or the route select card because we've said, hey, I want to play with this card. And the next step is going to be select player. So we're going to do show player selector, display controller, show player selector. Okay, and this card here is going to match this card here. Okay. Out get. Okay, so after we go to select the player, we then need to show the cards. So cards, card, players, player, question, name, show question. Let's copy this real quick because we're just going to change this to answer. Show answer. Okay, and after that, that is the last display. Everything else is handled by the system. Okay, so those are the routes that we need. Okay, we'll return view, show answer. And I don't have it yet, but I'm going to compact the, I'm going to return here view data. View data. So, and we'll show that here in a moment. Return view, show question, view data, view data. The view data is what the web page is going to use to fill in all the blanks on our templates. So view data, return view, show player selector, view data. Return view, show game board. Actually, as I'm typing this, probably heard that pause. I'm realizing I need to create a path for here and here. So we're going to actually do this. And correct. Name is right answer. We're going to do this again. Name is wrong answer. Wrong. And that'll handle those two scenarios. Now what I do notice here, I don't have any handlers here. So let's add some handlers and then go back and correct the function names. Okay, so show question. It's going to go here. Show answer. It's going to go here. I'm going to call this pick correct answer. Pick wrong answer. Public function. Pick correct answer. I'm going to change this correct answer. It's right and wrong, and correct and incorrect. And then we're going to receive these values. Okay. So, if the card was answered correctly, we're going to increase the answered card save and value this we're going to need to find a way to this. For now, we're just going to put get game board. Enter board. The value of the card is going to be equal to this get card value. Sorry, it's going to be the board. We're asking the board for the card value. And then player, we're going to increase bank balance by value. I'm going to save the player. If they choose an incorrect answer, we're not going to increase the answer. We're not going to change the, you know what? Card attempted. I think that's right? Attempted plus plus. We are going to add this. So if they pick the incorrect answer, we're going to increase the attempt count and save it. We're not going to do anything with the player bank. We're not going to do anything with the card. Okay. Show answer. Good. View data. But we don't really need any view data for the add flashcards. Return view, add cards. Oh, this is the return redirect route show game board. Alright, so let's double check that route name up here. Select card, select. Do I have a show game? Show game board. Oh, it's one word. Okay. So we're going to perform add cards, redirect to fresh game board. Okay. Turn view cards. Player name. Okay. View data. Add player. Alright, so we're going to get the board. Get game board. Let's see here. Private function game controller. Use game controller. That's not a function, that's a variable. So this is actually bad practice. So I want to do get game controller instead, because we don't want our objects to be too overly aware of the neighboring environment. So we're going to get the game. So this now is get the game controller. So the game controller is equal to first we're going to call this initialize controller. and we're going to return this game controller. And if this game controller is equal to null, if it's not yet set, then set it. There we go. Okay. Which also now means that this isn't going to the board but the game controller, but that's okay. That's okay. The variable names can change. So, but now I want controller this get game view data players is equal to controller get active players. Okay, and we're going to pass that here. Now we have to create this function on the game controller. Okay. This initialize game board. Return this game. Okay, do we have a get players option? Nope, we don't. Get players. So let's take that and go to the game board. Public function, get players. Return this players. There we go. Okay. We're going to initialize game board. So now the game board, I'm not storing in a database. So what I want to do is I want to store it in a session variable. Use session. Laravel provides a nice little session facade here to manage that. And we're going to const session key game board. Okay, so board is equal to session. I don't remember if it's get or read. Maybe it's resolve get spy swap put. Get self session key. Enter if. Okay, first off, we're only doing this if this game is equal to null. Okay, this load board from session. I really only want to do that though if it hasn't been done yet. Alright, I'm just trying to find a way to reduce the number of checks. Yes, create new game board. we'll check again here if this game to null. Let's rename it. Create new game board if needed. This game is equal to new game board. Okay. So now we've got, when you call initialize game board, by the time you get to the end here, this now is no longer null. We now have a get players. That's good. Private. Private. Okay. And we do want to save the game whenever this is destroyed. Save game to session. Clear all variables. So I'm going to replace this with private function. That's all. We're going to replace that with open and closing bracket. We're going to format, and here we're going to go session put self session key this game, and then here this, we're going to unset this game. That's currently the only variable. We may have more later. We may have more. Let's see here. Let's make this a little bit bigger, get rid of that. Okay. So we've got a lot of stuff going on here, and we still haven't created any views. Okay, but we know that we've got the players here. We know here we're going to get the player name. Okay, so let's start working on our views. Close these. Close this. All right. Down in the resources, in the views, we can create some files. We're going to create a base template first. Base. And this is going to be shared by all of our templates. So we know that doc type HTML, HTML. Normally I would let's have a new port in here. And keep it all very simple. Title, question, game. Yield, content. Yield is going to allow us to inject stuff into the page body. Okay, now up here, there are some standard things that I want in every page. Mostly, I want, let's see here, get Bootstrap. I want Bootstrap 4.0 because I suck at front-end development. So I'm going to, let's see, find the CDN. Here it is. We're not going to do any jQuery on this one or anything fancy. So we're just going to do the CSS. Okay, projects. We're now going to new file, add player, blade.php. This one here is going to extends the base and section, content, and section. Alright, so to start with, let us do a simple thing here. We're just going to do div class is equal to container. This is required in all Bootstrap environments. We're going to then add a row, class to row, div class, call 12, h1 success, add player page. Okay, so let's go back here to PHP artisan serve. Let's see if that comes up. 127. So first thing, it should redirect me to add player. And then it should, aha, there we go, add player page. It worked as planned. Alright, so let's take a look here and see. We passed in an array of data, which should be empty. It is. Okay. So we're going to have two parts here. First, up top, we're going to say start a new game. H2, register players. And then we're going to have two sections here. So first, we're going to have H3 have registered. And then start a new row. Add new. Okay, so down here in add new, let's refresh this, make sure we, okay, there we go. Got a problem here and here. Okay, good. Now, if, let's see here, count players is equal to 0. Oh, I remember I'm in a template. And else, and if. So in this case, we're just going to put a nice little alert up there. Div class alert, alert, info. No players added yet to game. Boom, that's nice. Okay, we'll worry about that next. Okay, so form method is equal to post. We don't need to put an action because our endpoint's the same as the page that we're loading on. Div class form group label player name input type is equal to text, name is equal to name, ID is equal to name, class is equal to form control. Okay, and this is going to be label for name. This helps keep us ADA compliant. So if I refresh this, we're going to see now down here. I don't like add new. Add player. Player name, okay. Button type, submit. player to game. Okay, so let's add some formatting here. Class is equal to button primary. Let's make this, yeah, button primary. Good. And now below the form, a class button danger start game. Add finish player selection. That's better. And for now, we're just going to pass this back to the same page. Okay, let's add some space in there. There we go. That looks a little bright. Let's change that to default. It's not too bad. Okay. So, if I type in Jared, and I add, it says page expired. Oh, I know what happened. I forgot to add in anti-hacker protection. So Laravel uses codes to protect people from requesting information from the server without actually getting information from the server first. So by adding this, I'm telling Laravel that I've requested this page through the program, and it gives me a security token so that when I submit the page, that it won't give me that timeout error. So now, good. So here's the request object that we had said that we wanted. So let's go back now to our display controller. Here's where I could, so this DD means dump and die. So we dumped the request object here. So I would like to access the input value called name. It should say Jared, so let's reload this. Continue. Good. Alright, so we're going to store that. Request input name. We are going to add a validation. Validate name is required. So no blank names. Let's make sure that we get to that dump and die without any issue. We do. Good. So now I want the game controller. This get game controller. In the game controller, we're going to add a player. Oh, let's create. Does it create game controller? What was the name of the method? Create player. Create player using name. Okay. And then we're going to just return this show registration card. Okay. So what do we have here? General error. Balance does not have a default value. Ah, so you remember we changed that, but I forgot to refresh the database. PHP artisan migrate fresh. It's going to delete all the tables and create new ones. So let's try it. Oh, let's start that server back up again and confirm the resubmission. Call to member function add player on null. Okay, and that's in the game controller. So we never initialized the game. This. Let's see here, initialize game board. So there's a difference between initialize new game and initialize game board, right? So we actually don't need this anymore because in initialize game board, we create a new game right here. But only if the game does not already exist. So this is a safer way to handle that. So let's try this again. Continue. And this is generally how some of the fastest development occurs. And you just kind of make some changes, see what errors occur, and see what happens. Now we don't have a list of names, but we also don't have that blue bar saying that no names have been added. So let's go back here to the add player. So this is what we were looking for. So if we do have players, then we're going to create a UL class list group. All right, and then for each players as player, and for each create a list item class list group item. And these are classes that are available in Bootstrap. This is why I added Bootstrap, because it makes things super quick, super simple. We're going to get the player name, and there's no need really to put the current balance because the current balance is going to be 0. Let's continue. Okay. Now let's add Gabby. Oh, alright, so I don't know if you caught that, but it just overwrote Jared. So what happened there, I'm guessing, the game board's not being saved in the session. So let's just create a save option. So save. So every time we make a change on the game, we're going to need to game save. Okay, so let's try this again. Gabby's going to disappear. Game controller save does not exist. That's not true. I just created game controller save. Oh, it's private. I have to make it public. Okay, good. So let's add Gabby back in. This time she should not disappear. Boom. All right. So as long as we're manually calling save, that game board will persist from one round to the next. Add player, player name, Anna. And then we've got Matt with 2 T's. Okay, so those are going to be our 4 players. All right. So that finishes the add player thing, except for one thing. I need next page URL. That's a nice generic name. So view data, next page URL is going to be equal to route add cards. Okay, and before we call that, let's reload this page, continue. Route add card. Maybe it's add cards. Oh, let's go back to our web.php. Alright, so we got add cards. What did we call that? What was the name? It was just add card. Let's make this add cards. That'll fix that. Continue. Okay, so now at the very bottom here, you can see that we've got a route, but we don't have a route to find, so we're going to get an error there. So let's save what we're doing here. So created controller skeleton, created add player view, tested, UX tested. This is an important indication that this was not a unit test, but a user test. UX tested add player get and post. Okay, there we go. So now let's go down here. Let's close out this stuff. Close all. We're going to go back down here to the views. New. So it's add cards. Add cards. Okay. Extends base section content and section. All right, div. Just to speed things up, let's open add player. When you find that you're copying and pasting, by the way, it's a good opportunity to just create a new template, but I don't want this to become too complex either. So we're going to do add cards. And we're going to add here P. Copy and paste from your favorite card set at cram.com. Alright, so on this one we're not going to show the cards that are already existing. Add cards from cram.com. Okay. Pasted card data. Cards, cards, cards. And actually I want this to be a text area. So we have to make some fixes here. Text areas have an open and a close. I'm going to create game board. Okay, and we no longer need this unfinished button. Okay, so this one actually doesn't require any data at all. Oh, what did we do here? Extend space. Oh, I forgot the blade. I forgot to add blade into the project title here, so it's invisible to my template system. Blade.php. And we don't want PHP to appear there twice. So there we go. Let's refresh this. Okay. We've got an undefined variable next page. There is no next page. Oh, I didn't save it. Okay. There we go. All right. So let's go to cram.com. We're going to get some test data here. So I'm going to sign in. I'm going to use my Google account. Okay, so here's all my flash. Let's make this a little bit bigger so we can see what's going on here. All right, So we got criminal procedure, contracts torts. The first year law review has 65 cards. That looks like it's going to be a good one. So these are card sets that I made for my study group. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to look for the export option, which I believe is towards the bottom. Lots of flashcards, so many flashcards, oh my goodness. Okay. I did not create any hints on these. We might go back and change that later. Oh, here's export. Okay. Now this can either export as a CSV, or I can just copy and paste here. So I'm going to hit copy. And let's go back to our question. Let's paste. And so we have here now all the data from those cards. So now before we continue, I don't want to lose that. Let's go over here to our application again. And let's get open the display controller. So that's going to post here. I'm going to add a DD. So, okay, first off, request validate cards. This has to be an array. Required cards request input cards, and let's just dump and die and see what we've got. Alright, so let's submit this. Okay, so what we have here is a massive amount of text. Alright, so let's figure out how we're going to do this. So first, game this get game controller, and then game. Okay, so first off, parsed cards, this parse block text into cards, into line text. Okay, and then for each of those lines, parts is equal to explode. Okay, so it's a tab that separates the line text. If count parts is equal to 2, let's put greater than or equal to 2, because I think if you add hints, it will add a third column. So we're going to say that the card in question is parts 0. The answer is parts 1. Okay, we're not going to handle hints right now. And the game, we're going to add card question. Answer. And then when all of that's done, we're going to show the game board. Alright, so we've got a couple of things we've got to create here. We've got to create this parse block text turn explode. Every time we see a new line character, we're going to have a new line. Alright, so let's go down here and see how that works. Let's change this here. Let's refresh the page. Now I should see an array with a whole bunch of, so here's 1. Oh, what what I don't like here is the fact that this is all one card. Also, it's broken these up. That's actually part of another card. So how is this? We've got a tab here, as expected. What's the end of this line look like? What does the end of that line look like? Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. So they use a return character, which we don't tend to use in Linux systems, but I can understand why, because that makes a big difference between a line break that occurs within a card and a line break that occurs outside of a card. Alright, so now we should see, oh, that's even worse. So we're going to break every time we see line return. Huh. Array of 60. There we go. I just needed to put some double quotes around there. Alright, good. Good, 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 good. Okay. So, now, let's take a look here at our parts. We should have two. This is an array with one. Okay, we're going to have the same issue here. I need to put double quotes there so that it can process that character. Alright, so the question, when do the rights of a third party vest? And here's the answer. Excellent. Okay. Now before we move further, let's make sure that we have this method properly defined. We do not. So we're going to have a flashcard. It's going to be flashcard first or create. I'm going to do question text question text answer text. And actually, you know what? I want to change the way that we handle that migration. So let's say flash. Oh, that works. Okay, cool. So all we have to do then is make sure that those are fillable. Flashcards. Okay, so protected, fillable, equal to, and then we want to be able to fill the question and the answer. Now this is going to give us some trouble because we don't have the used, attempted, or answered defaulted to any values, so we actually do need to change this. So we're going to default to 0, and what this means is that I'm going to have to delete all the data that we just created, because I have to okay, so before I do that, I'm going to take a look at the players here, content, and you can see we've got 4 players. So we're going to do migrate fresh. It's going to redefine the tables. Now those players are going to disappear, so I'm going to want to go back and create those again. Okay, but what that will allow us to do is allow us to get a flashcard without having to define or overwrite the existing counts. Active card. So we'll use a flashcard to make an active card. I'm pretty sure we had a function down here to create an active card, didn't we? Nope. I remember where it was. This initialize game board. And this get game board. Okay, and this get game board. And this is going to return a game board object. I think it was here where we're going to add card. I'm going to pass in a flashcard. Okay. So now if we go here to this method, here's where we create the active card. So our game controller doesn't actually need to know anything about active cards. It also doesn't need to know about itself. And this one doesn't have to know about requests either. Okay. Alright, we're going to save the game in the display controller. That way we're not saving too often. We'll speed things up. And then we'll redirect. Alright, so let's dump and dive into the game before we save it. Continue. Oh, I forgot to start the server back up. Serve. Okay, now let's try that again. Okay, so let's actually go back and add the players because I had to delete everything from the database. Now, that's interesting. Because of the fact it's saving a session, it doesn't care about the database. Let's see what happens if I add Jared a second time. Let's also add Gabby a second time. Let's add Anna, because right now I'm filling them back into the database here. See, Matt's still missing. That's the downside to using a combination between the session memory and the database. So now let's finish. We're going to go back to Cram and we're going to copy our text there. We're going to paste it in here and create. Alright, column not found. Unknown column, question tag. Oh. Sometimes we're working so fast we completely forget. Okay, so there is no column called question text. So when I pass in those values, it gets a little confused. So that should work a little bit better. So question and answer. Continue. Alright, so we've got a game with a card list of 65 cards. That's good because there was 65, oh, it doesn't show here. On the flashcard set, it showed that there were 65 cards in the flashcard set. We got 4 players. Alright, so things are looking good. So now I can save this. You know what? I'm also curious. What happens if I run this again? In theory, I should not have any more than 65 because I'm using the card ID as the storage location. Let's continue. So it should be 65 again. Good. Okay. So that's another indication that things are working well. Let's go back to the display controller. And So now it's going to take us to show game board. We actually need to create show game board. Let's change the name there. Alright, so we're going to take this, we're going to copy it, we're going to paste it. We're going to change the name to show game board. Okay, we're going to go in here and study game. Alright, so ultimately we're going to need a row where we show the player totals. We're going to need another row where we actually show the board. So H2. Scores. You know, actually, I'm going to want this to be on the same row. So let's get rid of this and do this. So we have the scores in the game board. Okay, so let's refresh this page again. All right, awesome. Awesome. So we got the scores, we got the game board. Let's start giving them some data. Let's save where we're at here. Get commit. Add cards. Okay. So here for each, we don't have any players yet displayed, so, but we're going to create a variable for players as player. I want to create a little list here. Actually, let's make it a table. Class table. Okay, and for each. So for each one, we're going to do a row. We're going to put out the name. And actually, I should use TD there, not TH. Players balance. And what we'll do is we'll sort this before we come in here so that the highest scoring player is on top. The game board we can also do as a table. So let's do, how do we want to do this? Okay. Table. Let's do 5 by 5, right? So 25 total. So TH, TR, for each count. Let's do while I is less than count, less than columns. And while. Okay. PHP and PHP. Column header count equal to 0. So we're keeping track here of the variables that we're using. So we're going to create players. We're going to have columns. And while we're doing that, we're going to column name column header index. Sometimes we change our variable names based on the meaning here. All right. I wonder, I don't use for in my templates very often, but we should be able to do this. Okay, that should work. Okay, then we're going to go for, let's see here, row index equal to 0, row index less than rows, row index plus plus, and 4. We're going to do a row. Okay. And then for call index equal to 0, call index less than columns, call index plus plus, and 4. We're going to create a value. The value is actually going to be the same across the whole row, PHP and PHP. So value is equal to row index plus 1 times 100. Okay, so that will start at 100, then go to 200, then 300, etc. So then we're going to do PHP and PHP active card is equal to display cards. Let's do array shift. Let's pull off the front of this. Okay. Active card. Set value. So now the issue here that we're going to have with setting a value is the fact that the game needs to be saved afterwards. We tend not to put logic inside our templates, but I don't see a way around it here because we don't determine where the card goes until it's actually displayed. We could do all this processing on the controller side and just pass a pre-formatted table, but for what we need right now, that's going to take just a little bit extra time, and I want to keep this quick and simple. So we're going to set the value on the active card, and we're going to just display the value. But we're also going to make this a link. So we want to make a href, the link there, class button, button danger. Okay, and this is going to be the select card link. Alright, select card link is going to be to the route for, let's see here, web.php. Select cards is going to be the name of the route, and for the card value, we're going to use active card, get card. So we actually want to use the flashcard. So let's go to our active card definition. Do we already have a get card option? Oh, you know what we also have to figure out? Whether the card is face down or face up. Public function get card. Return this card face up. Is face up. So to active card is face up. Okay, so we're going to display one of two things. If it's face up, we're going to display a button that they can push to select the card. Otherwise, we're going to display the same thing, but we're going to take away the link, and we're going to make it disabled. I think that's the okay. We'll be able to change that a little bit later. Let's add some formatting there so it's easier to read. So let's run through this again. So for every row, we're going to create a table row. For every column, but you know what we didn't do? We need to make sure that there are still cards left. If count display cards is greater than 0, then we can continue this process. And that way, if we run short of cards, we don't get a whole bunch of errors saying that there's no card. Alright, so there's always going to be at least one card, active card. We're going to set the value, which is set here. We're going to determine if it's face up. We're going to find the link that activates that card. I'm going to display the link as a button. If the card's been turned over, we're going to disable that. And then after all of this, we are going to save the game board because of the fact that we've made changes here. Now really, this should be done inside the controller because of the fact that I don't have let's see here. You know what, let's do that. Let's do that. Game board. Alright. So we're going to pass in a list of players for the display controller. Alright, so let's see here. We need view data game. This, that's equal to this. Get. Ooh, no, we actually don't want the game controller. We want the game board. So controller get game board. Good. View data players equal to. We already collected the players up here. Get active players. And then we're going to do controller set width self width controller set height columns. Okay, so we're going to do this 5 by 5. Okay. Create method set width columns. Okay, so now we're going to have columns. There's a default value in case they never set anything. Okay. So select new cards. We're no longer going to alright. So here we're going to do count is equal to this. Instead of asking for the count, we're going to create the count ourselves. So the count is equal to this columns times this rows. And actually, let's encapsulate that. This get board, get number of board spaces. Turn. Okay. So now let's see here. So the active card now needs a value. So we're going to do public function set value, public function get value. This value is equal to okay. Format that real quick. Okay, so now when we're generating the cards, we're going to sort it by difficulty, and then we're going to this assign values to cards. Okay, so now for row equal to 0, row less than this rows, row plus plus, for column equal to 0, column less than this, columns, column plus plus. Alright, we want to cycle across the columns first. Yeah? Oh, there it is. Yeah, that's right. So the value is going to equal to row plus 1 times 100, and we can create a different scheme later for that. Okay, the card. Okay, if count cards is greater than 0, array shift cards card. So this is now an active thing. We're going to set the face value card, set value. Boom. Alright, so now they all have values. We do not use a reference because we don't want to modify the actual array, just the values within the array. Good. Good. Let's go back to active card and let's get difficulty. Public function get difficulty. Alright, so we've got the attempts. Do this. So first we have the card. It's equal to this card. Attempts is equal to card attempts flashcard. It's attempted and answered. Attempted, answered. Okay, the difficulty would be equal to the attempts, or the answers, correct answers, divided by the attempts. It would be equal to 1 minus this, right? So if everybody answers it, for every time they attempt it, the difficulty is going to be 0. If nobody answers it, every time they attempt it, the difficulty is going to be 1, and everything else is going to be somewhere in between. So this is going to be only if attempts is greater than 0, because otherwise we're dividing by 0, and that's bad. So else difficulty is going to be equal to 0.5. Just put it right in the middle. And I'm going to return difficulty. Okay, so now when we go here to our game board and we sort based on difficulty, let's see here, you sort card list, function card A, card B, difficulty A is equal to card A, get difficulty. Difficulty B is equal to card B, get difficulty. And then the return BC comp, difficulty A compared to difficulty B. And that will sort our card list. The question is, does it sort it from high to low or low to high? That we'll figure out as we go. What we might do is actually display the difficulty on the card, and we can troubleshoot that later then. So now, we still need to go through these loops for column and for row, but we no longer need to do all of this pre-processing. So we don't have to set the value. We don't have to do that. We also don't have to save, but we're going to save it before we get here. We still need to find out if it's face up and get a card link, although we can get card links in here. Let's add that to the active card definition. Private link public function get or set select card link public function get select link. Return link. Okay. This link is equal to link. Okay. So now we don't want to set that in a game board because we don't want the game or the game controller to know much about where things are going. So here we've got the game. This let's initialize select card links. Get cards. think that's right. Game board. So get cards, yeah, gets the display allocation. Good. So we're going to get the cards, we're going to initialize the card links. Private. Active card list. Then for each active card list as active card, link is equal to route. The card equal to the active card get card. Lab.php. Select card. And boy, the good news is that, so this is taking a lot of time, but the good news is the farther in we go, the more things are defined and the faster it will go. Alright, so active card, set link, link. Okay. So now we're going to have players, we're going to have that. Now all we need is columns, view, data, columns, we go to self, columns, view and data rows is equal to self rows. And we're going to show the game board. Let's go back to that. Oh, and before we do anything else, we're going to save the game. Okay, so now we can take active card, piece face up, here we can put active card, let's see here, it was get link. And here we're going to put active card, get value, and there as well. Okay, so the only thing we need to do here is actually get the active cards. And the display cards is not yet defined. So PHP and PHP display cards is equal to the game get cards. Alright, so we've just removed a lot of processing out of this template, and I'm expecting to see a whole bunch of errors because we really didn't do much over here. Of course, ArrayReduce expects parameter 1 to be an array, and display allocation was not an array. So the question is, what was display allocation? Alright, so get cards, clear empty board, get number of board spaces, create display allocation, select new cards, count. Alright, so let's make sure that we're selecting random cards. And for now, we're going to let's see here. We're going to add a condition here that makes sure that we always go through that pathway. Because I want to test it. I'm hoping to get so how are we getting there without select new cards? all cards are flipped. Oh, I see. I see. So this display allocation, what were we initializing that to? We didn't initialize it to anything. Let's initialize it to an array. And that will fix that issue. Okay. Array reduce expects it to be, alright, and part of that is because of the fact that we're using a okay. So I'm gonna have to hack this real quick. So first things first, we're gonna initialize it here because this is pulling from the session memory. So I've got to change the value here. And then I've got to save the game. And then I've got to die. Alright. And that should fix the problem going forward. I'm just going to do that once. Base table or view not found. Okay, well that's fine because I died there. So hopefully that did the trick. Undefined variable column. Oh, I called it call. So let's go down here. We're setting the values. Where did we set the values? Okay. Undefined method set link. Now I'm pretty sure. Oh, it's set select link. You know what? Let's put set link and get link because I'm pretty sure we don't need any other. So let's see. Why is it that it's trying to access the database? Oh, it's calling the. I see. We don't want to save the game board. We want to call save on the game controller. It's a big important distinction. Controller, save. Alright. Trying to get property name of a non-object. Okay, I see the problem there. That's players. For each, we're going to go up here to player. It's player name and player balance. Now let's add a dollar sign in front of that. Okay, undefined variable column names. Oh, I did forget to define that. Let's go take care of that real quick. View data column names. Give it to this make column name array. Turn. We're just going to call them A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. I'm making more columns than I need, obviously. Okay, what are we getting an error on here now? Get link, undefined variable. Oh, I got to make that this link active So you can see that we make a lot of mistakes as humans, especially when you code large chunks like that. Alright, so here's the scores, here's the game board. That actually doesn't look half bad. Alright. I probably want to center these column names, but the other thing I want to check here, inspect. Okay, let's see if we change this to disabled. What happens? Makes it gray. Does it actually disable it too? It does. So really all we have to do on here is, you know, we'll change it to, yeah, we'll leave it the way it is. Okay. The other thing, yeah, okay. So, I'm going to save that, git, commit, created, show game board view. We really do need to create a reset game view, but time constraints. I'm running out of time here. Create a show game board view. UX tested. Modified model to suit. Okay. Next up, we have the select player thing. So we just did this. Now we need to select a player. So, close other. So select card, show question, select player. So we're going to have the card, show player selector. Okay. So, display controller. We come down here to the show player selector. We're going to copy one of these. We're going to paste it. Show player selector. Oh, and I forgot to put blade on the end of that, not blade. Okay. Which player will answer? Okay, so this one's going to be pretty simple. We're going to create a UL list for each players as player. And for each, we're going to do list item, but this list item is going to be a link group. Href is equal to select player link. Okay. Class group list item. Close out the link. Here we're going to put the player name. PHP, let's define that link. Alright, so the select player link is going to be the route, and we're going to need a card, and we're going to need a player. Okay, let's get that route name real quick, because we're going to go to show question next. Okay, that should be good. And make this a class group list. And let's call center text on that, see if that works. So I need to pass back into this view data card with a card, view data players, to this, get game controller, get give players. And then that should be it. That should be it. So let's select the first card here. So we're selecting card 31 and player. I don't like how that's formatted. So let's move this class here to there and get rid of this. Okay, still don't like that. Why? Maybe it's list group. List. There we go. Center text. Helps if you use the right. Boom. Ooh. Now the only problem that we have is that thing goes on forever. Okay. That's not too bad. But the center text isn't really having much effect there. Let's see what happens if I put it there. Okay, let's just get rid of center text for now. We've got more important things to do. All right. Commit created player. Okay, next we're going to show the question. Copy, paste. Show question grade. Question. Okay. So we're actually going to change this a little bit because we want to turn all new lines to BR. The question then I have, is it 2 or is it 1 exclamation point when you need the formatting to be unfiltered? We'll find out here in a moment. Then we're going to do href is equal to answer link class button default reveal answer. Okay, so we need 2 different values there. Here's the display controller. View data. So we're going to have the answer link. This is going to be equal to route. And then it's show answer. Then we're going to need both the card and the player in there. Compact card, player. Okay, view data, card. And that should do the trick there. So, Jared's going to answer this. Does Congress have authority to impose laws that supersede the U.S. Supreme Court? You know what? Let's change the way that this looks. Div class card. Div class card. Card header. Div class card title. Question. Div class card body. Okay, and now let's put this in here. Let's see how that looks. Okay. Good. Good. And does the answer link, oh, okay. I need that. Now let's reload this page. There's one answer. Good. Okay. So now we're going to duplicate that, copy, paste, turn this into show answer. Okay. Now down here, div class row, div class call, div class call, ahref, correct link, class button, button success, correct. Incorrect link. Incorrect. Okay. Here we're going to do card answer. Answer. Over here, we now need some similar values. We want to pass the card. We're going to need two links, but now it's going to be the correct link and the incorrect link. Now, that's right answer and wrong answer. Right answer, wrong answer. And both of those are already set up and established. The only thing that we don't have here, we now need to return redirect. Oh, you know what? card, turn face down. Alright, so here's the game controller. Get card value, board, turn card face down. We're going to do that actually for both of them. Board, save. Okay. Get card value. Alright, so here's where we're going to have to do some fancy dancing. First we're going to create this. Alright, so this is a flashcard. Card ID is a card ID. Active card. This card list. Oh. This game get card by ID. Card ID. Okay, active card. I'm going to then turn face down. The other thing we're going to want to do when we create a new board is go through and make sure everything is face up. So we could probably do that when we're setting the value, right? Initialize game board. We're going to go through the same process that we use here, but instead of setting a value, actually, you know what? We're just going to do for each cards as card, because we don't care about the position. Turn face up. Okay, there we go. That'll do that. Da, 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 da. We're going to redirect back to show game board. Just like that. Boom. Boom. Okay. So let's reveal the answer. Let's add a little bit of space there. I don't like that. Alright, so div class call 12. We're going to add a little bit of space. A little bit of space. Alright, and we got that one correct. Call to, oh, we never did create the get card by ID. Game controller is a display controller. Get card value. Okay, so that was in the game controller. Turn card face down. Game, get card by ID. And you know what would be even easier? No, let's not do that. Let's just go to get card by ID. Game board. Overlook function. Card is going to be this card list. Okay, hold on. First, we're going to set it equal to null. And we're going to set it to a new active. This is going to be a null object. So you don't break the system if no card is found. If is set this card list, card ID, then we're going to replace the null card with this. We're going to return whatever's available. So if it's not found, we're just going to turn over a card that doesn't matter to anybody. Okay. So now we've also got to get the card value, which is going to be a very similar process. Public function. Return active card get value. Okay, so let's try submitting that again. Okay, get card by ID on null. Game this get game board. Okay, let's try that again. Undefined method increase balance. Well, let's define that. The good news is it's calling it. Public function increase balance amount. This balance is equal to BC add this balance amount to 2 decimal places. Alright, so now this card is done. My score is not changed. We gotta look into that. Let's check the database. Players. So the balance has changed there. What we really need to do is find a way to refresh the data from the database. I'm sure that Laravel has a quick way to do that. How to refresh Laravel model with database data. Reloading model in Laravel. Refresh a model. Our casts are nice. There tend to be videos though. I don't feel like watching a whole video. Model find, reload, static instance new query find. Oh. Well, it looks like the best way to handle it would just be to reload and fetch the current model. So what we're going to do here on the game board, when we get the players, we're going to refresh player list. Alright, so private function refresh player list. Okay, new list, so to an empty array for each this players as player. New list is equal to player find player ID going to use sort new list player A player B. Return BC comp player A balance player B balance. And this players is equal to new list. There we go. Alright, so let's see how that works there. Alright. Now we just want to reverse that list. Array, reverse. Sorted list. Okay. Good. Alright. Let's try this again. This time, Gabby's going to answer a tough one. Reveal answer. Okay, and she's going to get it correct. Alright, so we've got a grayed out scoreboard there. Gabby's got 400. Alright, Matt, I'm sorry, sir, you're going to get one wrong. Under a delegation, what to turn? Okay, I'm going to reveal the answer. Incorrect. So we should see the card turn over, but no change in score for Matt. Card turned over, Matt still has 0. Alright, so the only thing we're missing so far is a way to reset the game. So let's add that real quick. And then we'll be done. Git commit. Okay, so let's see here. Finished game pathways. To do reset game commit. Okay, so we're going to add a way to reset the game on 2 different screens. So close all, close all. First things first, let's get up our pathways again. Out, get, reset. All function. Turn, oh, sorry. Name fresh game. We're going to do this again, but we're going to call it just a fresh board. No, we're going to call this one reset. reset game. Alright, so in one method we're going to reset all the game parameters, choose new tiles, and reset scores to 0. Clear game. Okay, so let's get our display controller up. So we've got two different functions we've got to create here. Public function clear game, public function reset game. Right, when we're done, we're just going to go back to the page that we previously were at. And in this case, we're going to actually remove the game, this, get game controller, delete game. And then we're on this one, reset game parameters, restart. Let's see here. Play again. That sounds better. Alright, so gotta make sure that we're using proper syntax. Okay, so when we delete the game, the easiest way to do that is just to take the session and we're going to unset, remove, self session key. So that gets rid of all players, that gets rid of all boards, nothing exists at all. And we're going to play again, create method. Alright, so we're going to do two things. This, reset player balance. This, clear board. Okay. So for each this, okay. For each this, get active players as player. Player balance is equal to 0. Player save. And game is equal to this, get game board. Game let's see here. Reset active cards. Move active cards. Actually, I don't like that. Refactor, rename. I can refactor there first off. Reshuffle. And deal. And this one's pretty easy. For this, we're just going to go to a display. We're going to set that equal to nothing. So next time we call a game, it's going to do that. Now let's create some buttons. Alright, so on the display controller, we're going to view data reset URL route fresh game. Okay, and down here on the show game board, we're going to add to data 2. We're going to do the reset, and we're going to go to replay. Actually, we're not giving reset on this one because there's no pathway there to go back to. Actually, no, let's do that. And let's go up here and change how we handle this behavior. We're going to redirect route add player. So if we're starting a new game, we've got to start all over. We're going to go all the way back to add player. All right. Players. Get active players. I want to show the game. Okay. So this one here, we're going to get the reset route. Okay. So now on the add player view, I need to add a button. And we're calling that the reset URL. Button info reset player list. And it's essentially what it does there, right? Okay. And we can probably just copy that. And now we're going to go to the show game board. And we're going to go down here. We're going to add another row. Div class row. Div class. And this one's going to be clear players. Create new game. Okay, and we're going to play again with random cards. Okay, and this one here is what we called it the replay URL. Okay, so let's take a look here at what this looks like. Play again with random cards or create new game. Let's make this a little less default. 20 maybe? Okay. So let's create a new game. This should direct us back to the very beginning. Add. Add. Okay, finish player selection. And that, of course, isn't going to work. So let's go back to cram. Let's copy and paste. Cool. Everybody's got 0. So the only thing that I didn't do is put the number of times the cards have been used in a game. But let's take a look here at the database. So flashcards. So we do have multiple attempts, multiple answers, and we should only have 65. Good. Good. Okay. Well, that's it for this game. Now I'm going to use Git to transfer it to my server, and we're going to play this tonight, and it will be fun. Finished card game.